What's going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, and today I've got special guest, good friend, and client Greg on the line. He's here in person. We're going to be diving on into his competition prep protocol, what he's here doing in person, what we've got in store for you, what we've got filmed, what we're doing from a content creation standpoint. Lots of things in the works that I'm very, very excited about. If you're interested in a ketogenic bodybuilding competition prep protocol, this is your episode right here. I did not mention it on the tail end of the podcast because I totally forgot, but he is KetoGreg80 on Instagram. So definitely give him a follow, listen to the conversation, learn something, and enjoy the podcast. It's on video, it's on audio, and you're going to love it. So let's dive into the conversation. Boom, we are live. Greg, what's up, brother?
How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's kind of funny because we're recording this, but you've spent the past several days with me here.
I have.
We've put some YouTube videos out. We've got some content coming for people that are listening to this podcast and don't know what's going on. You are my client. We've been working together since the last part of March.
Yep.
You just did 2 competitions and kicked butt in both of them. And then you came here. We recorded a bunch of content around the concept of competition prep with this ketogenic protocol. And now we're recording a podcast that just kind of tops off the whole event.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a whirlwind.
Are you hungry?
I'm starving.
I'd love to kind of dive into your prep. All right, so just to kind of give the audience, the listeners, some context here, you were like 230, you said, before you started working with me?
Body weight. Yeah, I was probably mid-220s.
Mid-220s?
Yep.
And then when you and I linked up at the very end of March of this year, you were 211. So I got your spreadsheet pulled up right now. And we started working together. You were 211, 212, and your starting macros were 300 grams of fat, 150 grams of protein, 3,380 calories.
Yep.
How'd you feel with that intake?
I felt good.
That's a lot of food.
That's a lot of food. Yeah.
Fast forward to these past few weeks when you've been doing peak week, and you competed at about 100, you got down to 180, I think was your lowest, 180.8, 180.8
Yep.
was your lowest. And the macros these past few weeks have been 130 grams of fat, 95 grams of protein, 10 grams of carbs, 1590 on the calories. But we had a refeed once a week.
We did.
And that refeed here lately has been 195 grams of fat, 175 grams of protein. So an average intake of 1,719 calories a week.
Yeah. Yep.
Still a pretty high fat ratio, though.
Yeah, pretty high fat. Felt good.
Felt good.
Mm-hmm.
I want to dive into the nuts and bolts of all of this prep, but you used to compete with a carbohydrate-based protocol back in 2013 was your last shows prior to these, right?
Yeah.
And what was a typical day of eating like for you back then?
Oh, boy. That really included a lot of pretty boring carbohydrate content. So I think maybe trying to remember back that far, a lot of white rice, veggies, pretty bland, lean meat, chicken, turkey.
Bro diet all the way.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you did physique then. And how old would you have been in 2013?
I would have been, I should know this right off the bat, 32, 33.
So you just earned your pro card this past weekend at 41.
At 41.
With a ketogenic approach.
Yes, sir.
Much better?
So much better. Yeah. If I could recommend one way or the other, definitely the ketogenic approach. It's much more satisfying, taste-worthy, sustainable.
I wish we knew what your calories got down to in 2013.
Yeah, I don't have any of that info.
I would imagine
anywhere.
it's probably not too far off of what you've been at here lately. I would imagine.
Probably. I think that one was really, really difficult on an appetite level and on a mental level, emotional level. It was just very, very tough.
Yeah. The thing about a ketogenic prep protocol, and we're going to get some blood panels done on you here soon to see kind of how your hormones have been impacted. We didn't do that before you started, but we'll get it now that you've been at the deficit. Then we'll do it again after you've done some reverse dieting. But I feel very confident that when you go through a prep protocol, you get as lean as you've gotten, but your dietary fat is pretty high. Your the impact it makes on your testosterone count is negligible compared to what it would be with a traditional, very low dietary fat approach. You're still going to lose some testosterone, but I feel like you're able to function. You're not like a zombie right now.
Right. Yeah.
We went on a 5-mile hike yesterday.
We did. Yeah. And that was literally after 2 cups of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we really had. And we lifted before that.
Yeah.
So we were able to maintain with little to no intake that whole morning.
Now this prep has not been a walk in the park for you though. We've had a few trials and tribulations, so to speak, with regard to just your life outside of bodybuilding.
Very true.
You want to dive into that at all?
Sure. Everyone knows that we've gone through a pretty rough, crazy COVID-filled year or two. In addition to that, I lost my dad in June of 2021, so very recently. He had a pretty short-term endeavor with some cancer that we were all made aware of last year, kind of in the middle of the whole COVID pandemic. So that was pretty tough. We were able to try and spend some time with him, but COVID put some limitations on what we were able to do and not do. So we made the best of that. I think that doing this prep and hitting the weights and giving myself a sense of something to strive for is really, really part of what kept me sane. I'm not going to say it was easy. It definitely wasn't easy. It added a whole new component to digging deep mentally, emotionally, physically. But it gave me something outside of just sitting around and feeling shitty about life and the world and everything. It gave me something to do, somewhere to go, something to focus on and kind of divert some of that sad, depressed energy into something that was beneficial and gainful.
Yeah. I mean, we started working together the very last little bit of March, and you said that happened in June.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, we didn't really know each other that well at that point. We just started working together, but you were flying quite a bit, or you were in the hospital quite a bit.
Yep.
And not too many options hospital food-wise. So there was like a few periods there where you probably didn't nail the macros. But most people in that situation would have said, to heck with it, thrown up their hands and say, look, this is not a good time. I can't do this. And they would have just given up. And that would have been understandable. I mean, that would have been a reasonable thing to do with an obstacle like that looming. But I feel like in just talking with you, having this outlet to, force yourself on kind of gave you some structure. It gave you something to just sink your teeth into so that you wouldn't spiral out of control.
Absolutely. Yep. I could have easily just stepped back and said, forget it. I want to just not really care about things and eat whatever I want to eat and not really try to nail macros and not really stay motivated. But I think that really, really helped throughout the entire process as far as giving me something to just grasp hold on and keep me sane.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of people, man, the stars never align for a prep. Like a prep is going to be 4 to 6 months long, usually. Life happens during that 4 to 6 month span. Some things are good, some things are bad, but the stars never align. In fact, it's like when you do a prep, it's like everything, the world conspires against you almost. Like
I agree.
Like things happen worse for the whole situation. But I feel like the people that see through that and just commit to it and say, hey, look, this is the decision that I've made. I'm already in. I'm going in. I'm going to continue down this path no matter what. Like the people that come out of that, despite all the chaos, are so much better for it.
Yep, totally agree. I'm not a huge fan of excuses, and I didn't really want. Most people would have said, yeah, this is more than just a typical excuse, but I didn't really want to let that steer me off path because originally my whole goal was, after had done several conventional type competition preps back in 2013, is I wanted to do another one now with a ketogenic approach after hitting 40 years of age. And my 40 years of age was technically in 2020, but COVID really put the kibosh on that. So I had to push out my 40-year goal one more year, and I said, there's no way I'm going to push it out a whole nother year or give up on it. So here we are.
It's pretty cool, man. It's pretty awe-inspiring to see you at 41 with all the chaos that happened to you this year, you know, adhering to your macros, hitting the ketogenic approach, you know, full speed ahead, and just getting steadily better every single week. Like every single week that you sent me updated progress pictures, it was better than the week before. There's veins popping that we hadn't seen prior. Your weight continued to trend in the right direction. Your training was still on point. I mean, no prep is easy, no matter what food protocol you're following. But I feel like you totally took this by the horns and made the most of it.
I did. Yep.
And you got your pro card.
And I got my pro card. Yep. 41 years old. Wasn't really expecting to do that or shooting to do that, but that was a little icing on top of the cake, you bet.
And you did physique, men's physique, and also classic physique.
Yep.
And you did both the open category and the Masters Plus category, 40
you got
plus.
It. Yep.
And you, what were the total placings on all of those? Because you did 2 shows, both in Minnesota, correct?
Yep. I did 2 shows back to back. So let's see. We had the Minnesota Mayhem Natural Bodybuilding Championships. Natural,
yeah. I forgot to mention that's a pretty important part.
100% natural. That's one of my values right there. I'll make that well known. That was October 9th, Saturday. And so my placings at that particular show were first place men's physique masters, first place men's classic physique masters, and then also second place men's physique open and second place men's classic physique open. So that was the first of the 2 shows. The second one was just this past week or so. That was the Minnesota Clash of the Titans on October 16th. And that is where I was able to earn a IPE pro status in men's physique masters 40 plus. And also took home a second place men's classic physique novice and a 4th place men's classic physique open.
And both of these are tested shows.
Tested shows, you betcha.
And they don't mess around with that. Like they had you do a polygraph test. Was it the night before you did the polygraph test or the day of?
I did a polygraph the evening before Clash of the Titans, and the other competition was urinalysis.
So and they did the urinalysis test on you as soon as you got off the stage with the pro title, first place title.
With the second show, yeah. They also had a UA done immediately after being awarded pro status. Yep.
Now that is pretty cool, man. Especially at 41, a lot of people are going down the route of, HRT at that point. Even long before that, I mean, HRT is kind of like the hot thing right now. And I'm not to say that there's not a place for that, but it's super impressive to see you at 41 being ketogenic for the past, you said 6-7 years now.
Yeah, 6+.
Yeah, 6+ years, winning your pro card status at a natural tested physique competition, kicking ass, man.
That was the goal. Yeah, I wanted to do everything as straight and narrow as possible, just because that was valuable in my mind, and I never really wanted to cross that path of becoming not natural, because once you cross that, in my opinion, you're never looked at or can say that you're natural anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think there's a whole different vibe with the natural federations. I mean, the competitors there seems to be a lot more camaraderie backstage amongst competitors in natural federations. I've competed in both, and there's some amazing NPC and non-tested shows. But if you are natural, I always encourage people to go the natural route, because it's just a totally different vibe. And I feel like people, I don't know, I feel like it makes sense to compete against people that are also trying to be as clean as possible with it.
I totally agree. A couple of the shows I had done back in 2013 were NPC or some other that were not necessarily naturally recognized, and the feel of people backstage and the competitors and just the whole atmosphere is so much different when everyone has put in the work. They're all natural. They're back there with the same goals. That they made sacrifices, had to diet, had to work heavy, had to give up certain things, and they're back there for the same reason you're back there. And there is a ton of camaraderie, and you just respect each other so much deeper, knowing that everyone's natural.
Yeah.
No one's been cutting corners back there. So
now I would venture to say that backstage, even in this natural show, you were probably the only one chowing down on keto bricks, whereas everybody else probably eating rice cakes and peanut butter.
It was pretty cool. Being backstage, everyone was definitely trying to carb up, and they were all complaining to one another about how they had to load water or sodium. They had to cut down on carbs, completely carb deplete, eating dry white rice, dry unflavored, unseasoned boiled chicken, tilapia, asparagus spears, and I kind of chuckled because the evening before I was chowing down on a 1,400 calorie fathead cheesy fat-filled pizza. So no, I don't think anybody else backstage really was ketogenic that I was aware of. Nobody seemed to be in that realm of what they were chowing down backstage. But yeah, to be able to grab a big chunk of keto brick and eat that, and everyone else is eating rice cakes.
Yeah, I'm just confused, man. Like, I don't know how you were able to bring that level of vascularity and conditioning to the stage without carbs coursing through your veins. I mean, how'd you do it?
It was magic. Yeah, totally magic.
I don't get it, man. There's this stigma in the sport of bodybuilding that's so anti-keto from like a peaking standpoint. People assume you have to have carbs to fill out muscle glycogen. What they fail to realize is that when you're doing a peak week, you decrease your training intensity, so you're not depleting at all. Like we never once went through a depletion phase, and your body's able to preserve the muscle glycogen you have much more efficiently when you're not really tapping into that as much. So any that is not there has time to replenish, and then you're able to stay hydrated. The only sodium or electrolyte manipulation that we make is we added about 200 milligrams of sodium over your baseline on Friday, because you're normally
2,000.
taking 2,000.
Yeah,
my bad. So you've been taking in 5,000 a day, and I guess we did about 2,500.
It was about 2,500 milligrams of extra sodium. The night before,
and that's it. That's the only change. So you're staying hydrated the whole time. You're never having to decrease your sodium intake. You're drastically increase your sodium intake. There's no potassium depletion or anything like that. So your electrolyte levels are staying in check. You're just healthier. Like, you're not walking around like a zombie and risking, cardiac arrest like some of those competitors are, crazy cramping or anything like that.
Yeah, I remember doing the conventional approach, and the morning of the competition, I was so thirsty. I just felt so dehydrated because you're just going through such a hydration depletion up until that morning. And here we were in this ketogenic approach, still maintaining 200 plus ounces of water straight through. We never altered that at all. I didn't feel thirsty in the morning. I didn't feel depleted. I was able to get up, have a couple fatty coffees, and then have a decent eggs and bacon for breakfast, and then just munch on some keto brick. And I remember being super kind of lethargic with the other conventional approach. And that was definitely a noticeable difference between then and now, big time.
What's the feeling of euphoria that happens once you're on the stage and you've got your competitors lined up there with you, and the MCs awarding? Did they do it from last place to first place?
Yeah. Yep.
So you're up there like you're one of the last people standing that hadn't been awarded yet.
Yep.
And there's only a second place and a first place left, and they call out you for first place. What's that feeling like?
That was pretty awesome. I remember standing up there, and they had us lined up top 4, top 5, whatever it was, and they called the first guy, the second guy, and then I was just hanging out next to the other last one up there, and I thought for sure he was going to get it. So I had already assumed in my mind that I was going home with second place, and they called his number and had him out for second. It's amazing, and I thought for sure he kicked my butt, but that wasn't the case.
That wasn't the case, man.
Yep, pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I feel like people that have never done a show, they look at this sport and it's strange, man. Like, you're freaking super dark, you're tanned, you're shaved, you're up there posing around. It seems like a very selfish sport. It seems like a very vain sport in which it's all just about how you look. But I've always told people that this is more of a mental sport than it is a physical one, despite all the training, the nutritional manipulations, like what's going on in your mind throughout the prep process itself, especially with you having the kind of the obstacles that you endured, and then like through to show day and beyond. Like, it's like you learn more about yourself throughout the several months of a prep it's like 10 years distilled into 6 months where you just grow as a human being.
Absolutely. It's a struggle. It can be really, really tough. There's days you don't want to go to the gym. There's long work days where you just want to call it a day. You got to meal prep on certain days. You got to make sure you know what you're eating at all times. You have to dig deep nutritionally from a physical standpoint. You got to train whether you have time to or not. You set aside time early in the morning. You set aside time in the evening. You get your cardio in, your meals in, your water in. There's no shortcut. And just every day by day, you got to just make the best of every single day.
And you do all that. You have 2 peak weeks back to back. And then you get a phone call from me, and I'm like, hey, man, I want you to diet for a whole nother week. I'm going to keep your macros the same. I'm not going to give you a refeed. We're going to go down a whole another week. And I basically asked you to prep for a whole nother peak week.
It was a third peak week.
It was a third peak week.
It was a third mock show. And it was like doing a whole third cycle.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't want to tease this too much for the people listening, but we're building something big. I've been working on something. I've been working on the book, which people that have listened to my podcast know I've been working on. There's going to be a complete companion course that is just, there's not going to be anything else like it anywhere. But for your sake, you had just gone through, this prep protocol exactly, and you had peaked properly both times. You earned your pro card status. So rather than me trying to illustrate what needed to be illustrated on my physique, which is not in competition shape right now, I'm like, shoot, let's just get Greg down here. We'll fly him down to Arkansas. We'll film all this stuff. We'll go through the peak week protocol. We'll show, how to apply the tan, what the poses look like, all the aspects of a peak week using you who've just gone through it. And that's what we've been doing the past several days. It's been awesome.
It has been awesome. It's been like a little getaway vacation focused around the whole keto savage, live savage, everything. It's been just fantastic.
Yeah, I'm super grateful for you being willing to prep for another week, basically. I think the content that we've captured is going to be top notch. It's going to be well worth it for sure. I tried to pay it forward and make your extra week of prepping worthwhile via the celebratory meal. Was it up to your standards?
Oh man, yeah, definitely.
We're gonna have to Chip, you're gonna have to put a picture of that steak in here somehow or another. But those steaks were legit.
Oh yeah, there were 2+ inch thick, fresh cut right from the meat market here locally, ribeyes, and we had some thick cut bacon. We had some jalapeno poppers. We had some cream cheese stuffed mushrooms. We had a nice 18-year-old bottle of Glenfiddich Scotch that we sipped on alongside all that. And we went to bed pretty stuffed that night.
Those steaks were like 2 pounds each, man.
They were. That's right. Yep.
Yeah, that's no joke.
Yeah. So that's like a whole week worth of macros for me.
Yeah,
this past week. Yeah.
We guesstimated your intake on Saturday because we did the peak week protocol. You did the fathead refeed pizza on Friday. You got here on Thursday.
Yep.
You had some crazy airline issues. Got laid over a jillion times. You got in 7 hours later than you had originally intended on getting in.
Right.
And then on Friday, we did the peak week, refeed protocol, and you had like eggs and bacon that morning, a quarter or a half a keto brick at some point that midday. Most of your calories were backloaded for that refeed fathead pizza, and the remaining half of that brick that evening. That was how many calories? 1,500 roughly? 1,500?
Yeah. Yep.
And then the next day, Saturday morning, you had fatty coffee. You had 3 eggs, I believe. 1 piece of bacon.
Yep.
2 pieces of bacon. 1 really big piece of bacon.
Yeah. That thick steak cut bacon.
Yeah, thick steak cut bacon.
Yeah.
And then a quarter keto brick every hour until we started doing the pseudo competition, which was going through the poses, doing the pump ups, applying the tan, all that stuff. We filmed all that footage, and then after that, we went for a run, and then we fired up the grill, and we poured us a glass of Glenfiddich. Or I guess I should say a few glasses.
There were a couple.
There were a couple of glasses, and that went down pretty smooth, man.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yep.
I think the when it comes to people comparing traditional prep protocols versus a ketogenic prep protocol, I think there's a massive benefit from a hormonal standpoint. I think there's a massive benefit from an energy and satiety standpoint. I think there's all these benefits throughout the prep itself. But if I could distill the benefits down to one singular moment acutely, it would be the celebratory meal afterwards. Because whereas so many people go off the rails and eat everything they can in sight, all the processed sugars, all the syrups, all the carbs,
baked goods, donuts.
I mean, Backstage, they had these available to you. You know, brownies, cupcakes, things of that nature, which people have different trains of thoughts of this. Some people are like, you know what, I've been sacrificing for several months. I should be able to eat whatever the heck I want and not feel bad about it and not feel guilty. It's not going to kill you. And I totally get that. But my line of thinking is that a lifestyle should not ever be something that you want to deviate from in the first place. Like, it is a lifestyle for a reason. And we were able to celebrate and splurge, so to speak, on great quality foods, but it never once deviated from the ketogenic lifestyle that we follow.
Right.
And I feel like so many people that eat clean for so long through the prep and then go off on a bender afterwards, that's where their disordered eating habits come into play. That's where their hormones really get jacked up. Their metabolism gets screwed. They start putting on a ton of unnecessary body fat. And you had 7,000 calories probably with a massive 2-pound steak, some scotch, some jalapeno poppers, stuffed mushrooms, and some keto brick. But you didn't feel like shit the next day.
No. Felt amazing the next day. We were able to, the very next day, that's when we were able to go on a 5-mile hike and hit the gym heavy. And it was like I hadn't even deviated.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, what I always tell people is take that Saturday after the show's over, you know, continue with a ketogenic approach. Like, don't need to track the macros or anything, but stay within that realm. On Sunday, do the same thing. And then on Monday, like today, you're back at tracking macros. And we'll just, you know, rein things in and keep things close to on point with where we want to go. With the reverse diet starting up now, you'll still have the refeeds, the refeed meals. Those will continue for the next several weeks. We've bumped up your protein quite a bit here at the end with the reverse diet starting. But it's like not something that you feel you're sacrificing from. You still feel in a deficit because you are, but you don't feel guilty for what just happened these past 2 days with the splurging. Like, you don't feel bad for that.
Right.
And I think that psychological factor is so important because so many people, you know, myself included, I'm speaking from experience here because this is what I did before I started doing ketogenic bodybuilding, is I would, you know, gain 20 pounds in a weekend, eat everything in sight, and then I'd have so much negative self-talk the next day because I would look in the mirror and see how, you know, far I've let myself go or how much more I weigh on a scale and just start beating myself up internally. And then it would become this vicious negative feedback loop of binging, purging. And if you never even feel guilty because you never once deviated from your lifestyle, which you know to be true and healthy, you don't have that negative self-talk.
Right, 100%. Yep, I remember that. That was kind of a struggle back before when I had done some conventional approach to competition. That very next day, you felt sick. You're slow moving. You're sluggish. You're bloated. You binged on every piece of sugar and candy, and you went out to eat, and you got just a ton of food that you normally wouldn't have eaten, and there were some repercussions. And then you felt guilty about it. You beat yourself up, like you said. Then you feel like you need to go do some cardio or avoid eating the whole next day, and then it just starts a cycle. And then you're you're backwards. You're upside down. You're eating too much, too little, and then your metabolism, it really takes a beating.
Yeah. I think with whatever diet you're following, I'm obviously probably a little bit biased. I'm an advocate for the ketogenic approach towards bodybuilding, but I feel like whatever diet you're following, you should be able to do it, you know, in your competition prep, in your reverse diet, in your peak week, in your surplus building phase, and it never once feel like you can't sustain it long term.
Right. I
mean, I think that's the main point, the main factor.
And another cool thing is, I don't think we touched on, is that my food selection never changed during competition prep off of what I had been eating on a day-to-day basis, just in the ketogenic world in general.
Yeah, so you never really felt sacrifice.
No, you never gave me anything you never gave me a meal that said you need to eat X number of ounces of this particular food, this many of this, make sure you get in this type of food, just macros. Honestly, it was just hit the macros with decent choices, and you gave me full freedom. I never really had to run anything by as long as I was hitting my numbers.
Yeah.
You know, I remember before it was, you need to stick to basic chicken, certain rice, certain vegetables, lean meats. Don't eat this, don't eat that. And this was totally free reign. So it was so sustainable and easy to do versus that. It was just keeping it keto, hitting the numbers.
Yeah, I think, the concept of flexible dieting in which you have a macro target and you adhere to that is I totally get that concept. Like, I'm all about it. There's been a push in the keto space to have all these dirty keto junk foods. And if you're doing a flexible dieting approach with a ketogenic diet, eating crappy foods, it's not going to be that great. But I think I'd like to think the majority of the people that are in the keto space have put a priority on an importance and a significance in the sourcing, the quality of the foods, the quality of that nutrition. So if you're eating good quality stuff and you have some flexibility as to where those come from, what types of foods you're eating to hit those macros, then you're rock solid, man. I mean, that's pretty much what I do. I don't usually deviate much because I just like the simplicity of keeping things pretty consistent. But if I ever want to, I can, and I don't ever feel like there's any negative, repercussions that come from that.
Right. Yep. It's pretty easy as long as obviously most nutrient dense food sources are ideal, but you do have flexibility there as far as what you can choose from.
Totally.
Yep.
Totally. Well, while we were celebrating and drinking some scotch, you said, I guess it started before then. It started at the Keto Summit Omaha.
Yeah, several months back.
All right, so
we got to preface that.
Yeah, preface that. Go ahead. What am I talking about here?
Yeah, I think I told you.
That's the first time we ever met in person with the Keto Summit Omaha.
Yep, we had talked a couple times. We had obviously chatted online and done all that stuff, but we met in person at the Keto Summit in Omaha, and we chatted a lot about competition prep and keto, and it was really cool just to be in that space around those kind of people. And I said, tell you what, if I can win a pro card at either of my two competitions, I would consider getting a little tattoo of the keto/live savage /keto competition prep logo, just because it really, really influenced me, kind of changed my life. It's got a lot of value to me, and it means quite a bit. And so while we were enjoying the scotch, the topic came back up, and we decided, I decided.
I totally forgotten about that in Omaha. So had you not said something when we were drinking scotch, I would never have thought about it.
So the loosened thoughts were there, but we chatted about it when we were on your back patio there, and kind of just enjoying the scenery and the conversation, and we decided that we're gonna pursue that. So I've got a pretty cool idea for a small little ketogenic competition prep logo tattoo that I think we're going to go pursue here this afternoon, and it's going to include the silhouette of a bodybuilder. I do believe
it's my silhouette.
That's you. Yeah. All right, so you'll be on me. And then I think you've got it surrounded by, what are they, laurels?
Yeah, but they're the laurels, which you looked up the meaning of. You remember pretty much what that definition was of laurels?
I want to say it dated back to like ancient Greece or Rome. It's got some history to it, but it was some form of
triumph,
displaying
basically.
Triumph or victory or winning more or less.
And the laurels, I think they're normally olive branches, I want to say, but these laurels are the ketone molecule.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Which is even cooler because then, it kind of wraps that whole logo idea up into me being so devoted into the ketogenic world and bodybuilding competition prep and what we've been working on recently, and also the success that I've overcome with this whole prep. The struggles that have obviously been part of my path, and just the whole weekend and everything. So we're going to go do that this afternoon. We are going to go somewhere local. I think we called a couple places over the past few days, just kind of see what was out there and find somewhere that's noteworthy, and stay tuned. I'm sure you guys will be seeing that somewhere too.
It's kind of crazy. I mean, I don't have any tattoos. You've got two, I think.
We've got a couple. Yep.
Yeah. So like the idea that somebody would want to get my logo and all that it means to me tattooed permanently on their body is just kind of like it blows me away, but it
means a lot to me too, especially with, you look into it and the breakdown of the components of the tattoo is it just kind of all comes together. It matches up with how I feel and what I feel valuable as. So
it's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that for sure.
Yeah.
We're going to do that. We're going to also, after this podcast is over, we're going to go do the tattoo. We're going to get a workout in. We're going to go for another run. We're going to go to Big Orange, which is a local burger joint here. So we've had a few pretty good solid meals. We had the meal that we cooked. That was the big, massive brontosaurus-sized steaks. And then we had Crystal make us a big old chaffle on Sunday morning.
Yep.
And that was like a chaffle that had, this is one thing, a lot of people, they want sweet foods after a prep, which I totally get, but this chaffle satisfies that sweet craving. We had the massive chaffle, which is simply made with eggs and mozzarella cheese, and we covered it with, we put some cinnamon in there, and we covered it with a little bit of peanut butter and melted keto brick, and some walnut pieces and some of those Lily's chocolate chips, which are sweetened with stevia. And then we had some bacon, some sausage. That was pretty much the breakfast meal yesterday. And then we had, we went to a Mexican joint, and we had some amazing, authentic Mexican food. We got nachos, and we brought pork rinds in, and the server was kind enough to say, hey, look, I'll swap out the chips for these pork rind nachos. No worries. So that's what he did, and that was delicious.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
If I could find somewhere that would do that back in my home state, I would totally be down for that. Yeah, that was incredible.
And then we're gonna go and we're gonna have, big old custom built burgers today, minus the buns, of course. So all these things that people say you can't do with a ketogenic diet, you can't have something sweet, you can't go out to eat, like all these naysayers, they're just wrong. Like they're really just wrong at the end of the day. They say you can't go pro, you can't compete with that without carbs. Everything they're saying we can't do, we're doing, and we're excelling in. So
that's also something that just drives me, fuels me. In my off season here coming up this next year, 2022, my goal is to build a little strength, build a little, maybe some size, but I also want to knock out a whole bunch of obstacle races.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. You did 2 throughout the course of this prep, right?
I did 2, both while in a pretty steep caloric deficit. And one was a 10-mile Tough Mudder obstacle course with 26 or 20 plus obstacles. Took several hours, and really the only thing that I fueled myself with there was electrolytes and keto brick.
Nice.
And that did the trick. And then not too long after that, and actually not too long before my first of 2 shows, I did a shorter length, what the heck was that one called? Maniac. I forget what Maniac Run. I think actually it was Maniac Run, but that one also blew myself away. I couldn't even imagine doing as good as I did, and I was full of energy. I didn't get tired like I was expecting to get tired. I finished it in record time, and that again was just electrolytes and keto brick. And besides that, I was in a pretty steep caloric deficit, so I was underfueled going into it, but being in the world of ketosis, it didn't matter.
Yeah, that's cool to me. Like I've always liked the appeal of doing these obstacle course races because you have to be agile, you have to be quick, you have to have some endurance depending on how long the course is. You have to have some strength because most of these obstacles involve some type of being able to hold yourself up from a body weight standpoint. That kind of brings all these factors together, and it's got like a cool competitive vibe. Like it's not like everyone's out to rip each other's heads off. There's a lot of camaraderie, it seems, amongst the racers. So I could totally see myself getting behind some of these as well. I feel like I'd do pretty good in them. So we have to do an obstacle course together sometime.
I'd be down. Yeah, it's pretty fun because a lot of the obstacles actually require a little bit of teamwork.
Oh,
so
nice.
if you've got some type of contraption there where it requires somebody else to help you get through it, and then once you're through it, you provide help for the next guy to get through it. It's pretty cool because everyone's there for the same goal, and you're cheering each other on, and people are really helpful, and it's really fun. Kind of open up a can of worms. I'd love to do half dozen more next year.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about the bodybuilding? You got you're 41 now. You've got plans to compete again. What's that looking like?
Yes. So I will be taking about an 18-month off season, give or take, and that's going to start officially now, kicking off with some data-driven recording starting November 1st. And I plan to gradually increase intake, lift heavy, train heavy, build some strength, build some size, and officially plan on hitting stages again the spring of 23.
So we'll be starting our prep at about the same time.
Probably like November 1st
Yeah.
of next fall of 22.
So both you and I are going to take the same time, to be in a surplus. I've got a little bit of a head start on you because I'm already at a surplus, whereas you have to return to a maintenance before you can get to a surplus. And then we'll be both building throughout the same period, and we'll both probably start our cut at the same time. So there's a good chance we might be stepping on stage, battling it out for a classic title in the near future.
What if we were on the same stage? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
I'll fly up to Minnesota. I'll come give you some competition.
All right. That'd be kind of cool. We will have to weigh that out.
I think we were talking about this before, but I feel like, way back in the sport of bodybuilding, like the golden era, you had all these competitors that were just ruthless because they all wanted to win, but they all kind of, cared about each other. They were all friends at the end of the day. So there was this fierce competition, but there was this camaraderie that existed as well. And I feel like there's not a whole lot of that right now in the bodybuilding space. I feel like I've got a super cool knit group of people in the WNBF Federation that we've always competed, same time frame, so we all care about what each other's doing. And I feel like I've got a little taste of that, but I'd love for the sport to be kind of more inclusive towards this friendly, competitive, vibe and camaraderie. So the more people that respect each other, like you and I respect each other, that, are being upfront about their competitive plans, even competing against one another, but then documenting that whole journey on social and just, whatever mediums that we're on, to kind of build that hype. I think that's good.
Yeah, totally agree. It's pretty cool. I actually met a ton of competitors at the first show that I did, and ended up bumping into some of those same guys at the second show, and we kind of just joked about it, that we wanted to beat each other, and we were hoping each other were going to get sick, and we were going to, slash their tires, and it's just really a camaraderie kind of goofing around kind of thing, but it adds a whole new part of it being really fun and exciting, especially when you make a lot of friends and you're going to be competing against them again, and it's kind of like you're training away from each other, trying to better yourselves on your own, and then you bring it to the stage, and then that's where you get to be the competitive part. So
yeah. And I mean, everybody should want their competitors to be the very best version of themselves possible, so there is a more fierce competition. I mean, make no mistake, I'm going to rip your head off on stage, but I want you to be like the very best you can be throughout the whole prep, so that I'm battling against the very best version of you.
Right. Yeah.
Which is how it should be.
Or I'll just have to find someone else to coach me.
Yeah. Well, sabotage your macros or something.
Yeah.
We'll do that to you.
Yeah.
Well, what else is on the pipeline, man? What else you got excited about? You've played around with the idea of making this kind of more of a profession as well.
That's been a pretty strong thought in my head. I do believe there's a part of me that's going to evolve into doing some ketogenic coaching. I think there's a spot for that, and I'm just going to grab that idea and I'm going to let it go. If you find something that really fuels your fire and lights your soul alive, grab it and do more of it. So it's kind of where I'm at.
Well, I've got utmost respect for people that practice what they preach. The fact that you've been keto for 6-7 years, the fact that you don't deviate from it, the fact that you just got your pro card following a strict ketogenic approach. I mean, that's all that I need to see to know that you would be definitely a voice of reason and a light in the darkness of the coaching, metaverse, so to speak. I mean, you're doing the right thing for the right reasons, and I appreciate that more than you know, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Super awesome.
This whole weekend's been awesome. We're going to have to do more of this for sure. I've got friends in Minnesota, so I'm going to have to come make it a point to go up there more often. You now have a place in Arkansas if you ever are in this area. Let's go get a workout in. Let's go get some food in us. Let's go get you tatted up, man.
Sweet. All right. I love it.
Pleasure, brother. Take care.